Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the last live at the Waterhole of February the 28th today, of course. So it's live at the Waterhole in association with Africam. And my name is Ben Coley, and I will be with you for the next 2 hours as we go on our daily odyssey through the cameras scattered across South and Eastern Africa. And as always, do not forget that this show is live and it's interactive. The wonderful people in Johannesburg. I have got Chulu in my ear today, and he will be assisting me by sending through all of your questions and comments. And I will do my best, as always, to answer those that I can. The ones that I can't answer, I will try and find out the answers. Always a good learning experience. So please, please, please do send in your thoughts and your comments. It always makes for a fun couple of hours, and maybe we can get some interesting debates going. But what a lovely way to start up at Old Donyo in Kenya with a couple of big elephant bulls and a rather brave giraffe who is chancing, I was going to say chancing her arm, but maybe we should say chancing her neck at a rather vulnerable drink next to these two great big elephant bulls. But you can see from their body language they look very relaxed. It doesn't look like they have any problems sharing today. And of course, today is a good day. The last day at Djuma, I'm sure many of you are watching this morning. And what a great morning it was. How lovely to see Columba and Shapondo this morning for the last sunrise drive out of Djuma. But as I'm sure all of you are very much aware, nothing changes. We've got some new locations. We'll hopefully be catching up with those old characters as well as meeting many new ones. It's a very exciting time. And hopefully in a few months, I will get a chance to visit one of these new sites and spend a couple of weeks there exploring. And I'm really looking forward to it, seeing some new trees, some new vegetation, seeing what the bird life is like, and trying to meet some new characters of that area. Very much a voyage of discovery. But we all have wonderful memories of Juma. I was thinking earlier today what some of my favorites were. I came up with a sort of a top five. I would love to hear some of your favorite moments over the last few years. And I thought throughout the next couple of hours, every now and again, I'll share with you one of my memorable moments. There at Juma, they are in no particular order, of course, but I have been very fortunate to spend quite a lot of time there and seen some pretty spectacular things. So I was thinking, which ones could I mention? Which ones, when I think about it, what pops into my head as memorable sightings? And I think the first one that popped in was a sighting we had up on Quarantine with a big open area close to the camp, where we were fortunate enough to watch some wild dogs. I'm trying to remember if they were feeding or just playing, but I remember they had some pups and we were having a great sighting of them rushing around just at dusk. It was a classic sunset, beautiful sort of pink purple skies, watching these dogs, and we were having a great time. And then looked up and noticed that on one of the termite mounds on the southern side of Quarantine, about 70, 80 meters away, we just got a glimpse of the shadowy figure of the ghost of Juma, Mulawati, who was also watching the dogs frolicking on Quarantine. I think they may have had a baby impala, so it must have been around summer sometime. It was a few years ago now, but I thought what an incredible experience to be able to view dogs. I mean, that in itself is pretty amazing. And then to also just find the most elusive of all of Juma's leopards casually sitting on a termite mound watching all the entertainment unfold. It was a real reminder that you must never get too focused on what you're looking at. Always be aware of your surroundings because you just never know what might also be lurking in the bushes. I saw Mulawati on that termite mound 2 or 3 times. I knew that termite mound as Mulawati's mound. It was on Quarantine South. And yeah, it seemed to be one of his favourite places to lie up early in the evening, probably just to get a lay of the land of that big herd of impala that used to love hanging out there. But one of my great memories, certainly. I see we've had a few greetings coming through. Penelope Kenyon greeting everybody here. Also saying it was a wonderful sunrise safari. And yes, let's hope for some special waterhole sightings as well. And then, yes, our last Juma Sunset Safari this evening. Don't miss that one. I'm sure that the bush will have something special in store for us. It often does. We always say the bush has got a sense of humour, and it knows the important moments and it knows the important times to really produce. Darcy Miller, you're asking if I heard the news about Cape vultures being seen after 30 years close to Mountain Zebra National Park. Darcy Miller, I did not hear that news, but I will definitely go and have a look. That is excellent news. I'm honestly not sure of the latest figures, but as far as I know, it's only around 10 to 12,000 individuals left in the world. The most endangered of our vulture species here in southern Africa, the Cape vulture, really is an impressive animal, or an impressive bird, I should say. I did get to see one whilst in, was I in Kruger or was I in Maniletti? I've been lucky enough to go into both over the last week or two. I think it was actually in Maniletti we saw a Cape vulture flying overhead, but we are fortunate enough to see them in this area with a reasonable amount of regularity due to the Drakensberg Mountains being very close by, which is where a lot of them will nest. Stevie GB, good morning, good afternoon to you, depending on where you are located. What is the peak summer months in this part of the world? Well, we are, I would say, just coming out of summer now. We are tentatively approaching autumn. So, because we are southern hemisphere, obviously, with the angle of the Earth, the southern hemisphere has been angled towards the sun. Recently, it's been baking over the Tropic of Capricorn, what it would have done on the 21st of December, which is the summer solstice for us, winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, of course. So, generally speaking, the 3 months of summer for us are December, January, and February. That's our hottest time, it's our wettest time, very, very humid. It's been incredibly cloudy of late. I have not been very busy doing astro stuff, and I'm getting slight withdrawal symptoms from doing some photography. It has been cloudy. We have had quite a lot of rain over the last couple of weeks, but it does look as if the weather is going to improve in the coming weeks, and then it should become more and more stable as we move into autumn and winter. We get a nice big high pressure cell over South Africa during the winter months, which keeps the clouds at bay and leads to nice stable conditions. The temperature's also dropping. We've had various days in the mid 40s over the last month or two. Not quite so bad recently because of the cloud cover, but very sapping humidity. But I see sort of as from next week when the sun does return and the clouds do disperse a little bit, it looks like we're hovering around the sort of the 29, 30, 31, which is a lot more tolerable for those of us who prefer it slightly cooler. Joanne Mello, good to hear from you too. Glad you could enjoy us. Could enjoy, dear. Glad you could join us. There we go. Lenny, you're saying that in 2009, Peter and Rex found a brown hyena on Juma, the first one they'd seen since 1992. Well, that is going back a little bit, certainly. I'm not sure whether any other brown hyenas have been seen since. Actually, did I not see that one was seen recently, or maybe that was on one of the different locations? Rings a bell from the last month or so. But no, I've never seen brown hyena on Juma, but I have seen brown hyenas in this area. We see brown hyena on Makalali sometimes when I was working with bushwires. I've seen brown hyena on Korongwe when I was there with eco training as well. So it is possible to get the occasional brown hyena here, but no, I wouldn't think very many in the Juma region. Same, I feel we have been ignoring these beautiful elephant bulls who are having a lovely drink, clustered around the inflow pipe as normal, and quite a few birds that have been flitting around. Two truly magnificent beasts. very similar sort of body shape. I know all elephants kind of look the same, but you can tell individuals. These two have very similarly shaped heads, I feel. One on the right does look slightly bigger. I don't think that's a perspective thing. They're very closely matched in age, very much in their prime. I'd say they're probably somewhere in their 30s, I would think. But if you like elephant bulls, it does seem that Oldonyo is the place to be. Delightful to just listen to the splishing and splashing of water, something so big making such a delicate noise. Something very, very soothing. Always about watching elephants, and particularly with them around water. They just display this aura of contentment and relaxation, punctuated, say, by these lovely little splishings and sploshings. They're never in a hurry to drink. Well, they say in a lot of places elephants do come down and just drink quickly and then disappear. I have noticed here at Aldonia they do tend to hang around for quite prolonged periods of time. It's so lovely to see them sharing their waterhole with the giraffe for a change. Oh, Laura Moore, yes. These two elephants, perfect for imagining what they might be thinking or talking about to each other. Absolutely. Still waiting for someone to create some form of electronics, gadgets that can actually translate these animals. That would be pretty amazing if we ever get to that point. Very pronounced forehead bump on this male. Doesn't look particularly old, this Maasai giraffe, just sort of looking at his general size and what I can see of the condition of the skin, but a very pronounced bump on the forehead, a calcium deposit, which you normally see in older males as they get older and the body produces that calcium just to increase the weight of the head for their necking purposes. Of course, Maasai giraffe are not particularly large. Oh, might be time to vacate the area. Of all the subspecies of giraffe, the three species and the 7, 8 subspecies, the ones that we get down here in South Africa are the tallest. Maasai giraffe characterized by all sort of jagged and more patches on the skin than our Southern African giraffes. So, a question from Ivan. I wanted to know whether drones are used to track or photograph animals or whether they're considered too invasive. Good question, Ivan. With the way things are going, you would think that they would be very much prominent in their use, and they are for research and things. But there is quite a big controlling aspect. A lot of reserves don't allow public drones just because of the risk potentially of poaching, particularly if there are rhinos around. Very difficult to know who is controlling that drone and what are that drone's um, intentions or the person's intentions who is controlling that drone. So certainly in the majority of private reserves and national parks, drones are forbidden for private use, but they are used certainly from a research perspective. And of course, lodges do use them as well from a marketing perspective for getting good footage and things to market their lodge and their reserve. But not so much, say, from a public perspective. They are annoying. I'm sure as technology improves, we'll get quieter drones. Elephants, as a rule, do not like drones. One of the ideas is that it reminds them of a swarm of bees, and elephants do not like bees. Um, so there have been places that have used drones to chase away elephants that are getting a little bit too friendly with lodge environments or places where they would prefer elephants not to be. And also, beehives have even been erected and established to try and sort of control elephant movements as well as a natural means of dissuading them from visiting certain areas. I, for one, am not a huge fan of drones, probably just because I don't own one. I do find them a little obnoxious at times, and certainly in a bush setting, so that that noise is a little off-putting, certainly. But say, as times change and that sort of technology becomes commonplace, I wouldn't be surprised if it can be controlled and regulated, whether it does become a slightly more accepted form. But most definitely has its benefits and uses from a research perspective. Oh, Laura Moore, you're saying the giraffe seems extra tall when right behind the elephants. Yeah, you kind of don't realize just how big giraffes are. We think of an elephant because of its sheer mass and bulk of being enormous, and don't get me wrong, they are massive, but giraffes are like quite scary big at times. I'm fortunate enough to stay in a wildlife estate, and the other day we had giraffes come right up the driveway, basically into the sort of the turning circle in front of the house. And I was sitting on the steps at the front just watching them, and I could easily have walked underneath their chest and probably just grazed the top of my head. I'm not the tallest guy in the world, but you really do forget just how large they are. And I'm also on a bit of a fitness kick at the moment, so I've been trying to go for a few jogs. And because there are free roaming giraffe and zebra and things here, they do seem to like to hang out on the main roads. There's a couple of nice marulas there. It's not having a scratch. Oh no, just having a pee on the right. So they're often on the road, and yeah, I did a first aid course recently, and we were hearing the standard sort of horror stories of accidents and injuries that have happened over the years caused by animals, some of which were inflicted by giraffes onto people. And it certainly sort of reminded me, never underestimate a giraffe. They can kick incredibly hard, capable of killing or paralyzing or badly injuring somebody. So yeah, I've had a couple of jogs where I've had to sort of stop and bundu bash to get around the giraffe. At one point, the giraffe really didn't want to move, and there wasn't an obvious path, so I had to turn around and go back the other way. But yeah, on foot next to a giraffe, you realise just how big they in fact are. Not to be underestimated. Wendy H, you're able to join us. 57-kilometre-hour winds in PE in Port Elizabeth. Wow, I know it's often windy down there in the Eastern Cape, but that's very windy. So hold on to your hats, batten down the hatches, and all that. But yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy the next, what have we got left, hour and 40 minutes or so. Some great sightings. Glad you could join us. And Penelope Kenyon, yes, tonight is the Great Planet Parade. But I'm sorry it's raining on the KZN coast. It's forecast to be cloudy here in Hoedspruit as well. But if you do have clear skies, get out there just after sunset, around about sort of 6:30, 6:45. Take your binoculars, and you might be lucky enough to pick out Saturn in the west. And then as the evening goes on, you've got Mercury and Venus also in the west, then Jupiter and Mars high above you, shining brightly. And then if you've got a good pair of binoculars and you know where to look, or even a small telescope, you can see Uranus and Neptune as well. So all 7 of the planets visible for a very brief time in the sky at the moment. Won't happen again for another 15 years or so. So remember, the planets are always in line. That's nothing special, but for them to all be in their particular orientation from our view after dark, that doesn't happen very often, that we can see all of them from our perspective. So very, very special. But I was hoping for some more clear skies. I had a project on at the moment to photograph something called the Witch Head Nebula. I actually did post a photo of it. Oh. Everybody gets out of the way of the elephant. Did post a photo on my Celestial Events SA Instagram page a couple of days ago. I originally wanted to get about 8 hours of data on it because it's quite a faint object. Got to about 3.5 hours and then haven't seen a clear sky for quite some time, which is a shame, and I couldn't wait any longer, so I've posted it anyway. But a very, very cool patch of dust and gas that does look just like a witch's face. So yeah, hoping for some clear skies, various things that I want to photograph before they disappear for the summer. But then we have Milky Way season to look forward to. It won't be long now. Zenbear, you've heard that a giraffe's kick can be lethal. Yep, absolutely. It most certainly can. It's strong enough to kill a lion. There's talk or reports of a giraffe that smacked an eland using its head, using its ossicones and a big whip of the neck, and actually killed the eland. It died from its injuries. It's a hugely powerful animal, and often underestimated. A dangerous proposition for lions to take on a giraffe, while it's vertical at least. If they can get it off its feet, it is pretty much game over very, very quickly. But an enormous force, kicking force in those powerful legs. It seems our Ellies have moved on and the giraffes can drink in peace without fear of getting stabbed or chased. That tongue darting out. I don't know if anybody saw, there were some photos recently of a poor giraffe in Kruger that was photographed that had a viral infection of the papillomavirus, so almost sort of creating these wart-like protrusions on the skin. I have seen it occasionally on giraffes, and it does create this sort of crusty appearance to the skin. But this one, poor thing, was absolutely riddled. The skin was hanging off it with these great sort of warty protrusions all over the neck, right the way down to the chest. Creates lesions which can then get infected. Um, Very, very unpleasant, and certainly the worst case I've ever seen. I saw the photos online a couple of days ago. And so it's something that I've seen, I remember seeing in the Kruger area once or twice over the years, but they do say it's not something that regularly affects giraffes, so certainly not to that degree. And thankfully, because giraffes don't share that much physical contact, it's not often sort of passed on like an epidemic between individuals in a closed area. There's some debate as to how it would have picked up such a thing, and they thought it was likely a case of bovine papillomavirus, so possibly transmitted by tick or oxpecker, a tick that had fed on a buffalo and then fed on a giraffe, or an oxpecker that had fed on an infected buffalo and had got some remnants of that virus on its beak or on its feet that could have been passed over and entered into an existing open wound on that giraffe. But yeah, really debilitating case. But it seems that the veterinary services have decided that they're not going to euthanize or remove it. They're not too concerned about it being passed on to other members of the populations. There will be some natural immunity as well, being a viral infection. And they don't think it's not affecting the giraffe's ability to feed. Its mobility has not been affected. I'm sure it's horribly uncomfortable, but they say no reason that that giraffe won't live out its full lifespan. It just won't be the prettiest of giraffes and might be a bit uncomfortable. But yeah, by far and away the worst case that I've ever seen. Jive Bunny, you're saying you're going to be looking out for those 7 planets. I believe the forecast for the UK is not too bad in some areas for a change. Yes, it will be chilly. I see you're, depending on where you are as well. But say it won't be. I think you've got a better chance than we have here. It's visible for slightly longer. But yeah, so for us, Saturn is going to almost be sort of lost in the dusk light. By the time it gets fully dark, it will have already set. But as I said, not often that you get a chance to view all 7. They're not going to form, say, a beautiful line across the sky, all twinkling. So 2 of them not really visible to the naked eye. Uranus is sort of right on the limit of naked eye visibility, but Neptune you will require a telescope really to see, even in binoculars, if you're able to identify what you're looking at. It would just look like a little tiny blue pinprick of light in the sky. It's so far away from us. Remember, just reflecting the light from the sun. But it does have a bluish tinge through a telescope due to the presence of methane in its gaseous atmosphere. And so 50, you're also fascinated by astronomy. Good, so it's a big thing at the moment, very topical. Astrotourism is one of the fastest growing trends in the world. Light pollution is gaining a lot of interest, a lot of clout in the conservation circles, just because of the knock-on effect that it has in wildlife. Um, Various organisms using the stars to navigate on land, and particularly marine mammals as well. Not to mention the effect that artificial lights have on insects and their lifespans and predator-prey relationships. Even sea turtles nesting and going the wrong way. That's a big problem for an endangered species like turtles. When little babies hatch, they normally head towards the lighter area. That's the starlight and the moonlight reflecting off the ocean. That's the cue that gives them their compass bearing to head to water. But because of the glow of light pollution from many, many towns and population centers close to coastlines, many of them misread that, see that glow, and head towards it thinking it's the glow off the ocean, and then perish due to dehydration, predators, human interaction, road issues. So, lots of animals affected by light pollution, certainly. So 50, you're hoping one ton makes an appearance. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's been seen recently. I know last time I did this a couple of weeks ago, apparently he had been seen earlier in the morning, but did not make an appearance whilst we were live, unfortunately. But that would be very special if he popped in for a beverage today. Right, I think we're going to chance our arm at another camera. I didn't quite hear which camera we're going to, so it will be a surprise for all of us. But let's go have a look. Ah, we've gone to Lintore in Kenya. Oh, lovely, and some vervet monkeys. We've had baboons here a few times. We don't often get to see vervets, pretty little things with a youngster. Scampering away. And I know we've left old Roger now, but Jackie Lilly, I just saw your comment come through. You're from a sunny Eastbourne in England, and you love how the animals have mutual respect for each other. Certainly, not always the case around water, particularly from elephants, particularly the younger members, those teenage boys lacking a little bit of respect sometimes and like to throw their sizable weight around. But it is amazing at waterholes. You can get loads and loads of animals sharing water, even predators and prey drinking alongside one another in hot times of the year. That sort of. I'm sure that monkey, did he fall off the tree? Or was he pushed off by his friend there? Looks like they're having a little bit of a game, a couple of the youngsters there. See who can get to the top of the tree first. Highly entertaining. Alex, you're saying good balance. So I'm not so sure for that youngster. So I thought he'd fallen off, but I think there was another one who it's almost sort of comically saw a foot stick out just before he fell off, as if he was forcibly removed. Just imagine mum or the babysitter here going, "Oh, really? Just try not to hurt yourself." She looks as if she's given up a little bit. Amazing how these things can find comfortable positions in trees. Baboons in particular, you see baboons almost sort of stretched out, lying down on their back, a bit like you might in a hammock. How they don't fall out, I'm not really quite sure. But these little vervets are incredibly agile when you see them leaping from tree to tree. Beautiful to see this little youngster cradled by mum. Sitting on the downslope the wrong way round, I'd be a bit nervous about that personally. Love the pink eyes that she's got. Almost as if there's a little bit of sort of leucism around the face there. That little black face peering out from behind the branch on the right. Often the way with monkeys, they'll sit there and they look at you and they hide behind the branch and they pop their heads out just to keep an eye on you. Really see the thought process ticking through their brains. This one looks as if he's just had enough and flopped down in the fork of the tree for a rest. A relaxed vervet monkey. How cute. Looks like this one's been naughty, has sort of been put in the doghouse. Also very pink eyes. Maybe that's something sort of in this area. I don't remember so much pink in the vervets here in South Africa, but certainly the same species. Maybe it's a little family trait. Jackie Lily, you love these cheeky monkeys. Yeah, they are great entertainment. I wish we saw more of them on Drive. Certainly there on Juma. We didn't often get to put vervet monkeys on camera. We used to have some regular ones at camp. We had to obviously always make sure the kitchen door was closed, and then we had to start locking it because they'd figured out how to open the door. But they are always entertaining. They can be a bit of a nightmare at times when they get too used to people. I got chased by one not that long ago, actually, but entirely not my fault. Some of the babies were fighting and they ran towards me in a campsite at Kruger. Um, and then I think Mum obviously got a bit concerned that I was too close and she came tearing towards me, teeth exposed. I have to say it took me a little bit by surprise and I swiftly got out of her way. Sharp needle-like teeth you don't want to get in the way of. And there we go. Don't want to get nipped by one of those. Zenbei, you're saying that they're obviously not worried about snakes being up in the branches, unlike you. I will say they've got very, very keen eyesight. They'll pick out a snake quite quickly, and they have a very distinct alarm call for snakes, different from that of lion or leopard. It's the benefit of having lots of them. They will be very much aware of their surroundings. Somebody will pick up the motion of a snake if there was one there. She saw tracks for a huge python yesterday on a little walk around the estate. Just that sort of caterpillar rectilinear motion, that big sort of line going across one of the roads, about the thickness probably of my lower leg. So I reckon probably a good 3 metre python that passed by there on the way down to the Blythe River. Lara Moore, you're saying the image of the tree trunk and the vervet family would make a good jigsaw puzzle. Yes, it probably would. Not an easy one though. A lot of similar colours, but some nice texture to follow. I do enjoy a good jigsaw every now and again. I prefer ones with more contrast though, just because they're a little bit easier. Just trying to work out what's going on here with this youngster. It looks like he hasn't quite finished what he started. Not sure whether he's got a little bit of a constipation issue going on there, but surprising that the other one was grooming that didn't take care of that. I'm assuming that's what we're seeing. Looks like she's tried to defecate and something's got a little bit stuck. Whether it's eaten something, whether it's, I hope it's not some plastic or something, which, will get passed through the digestive system. But nobody seems too concerned about it. Would have thought that the adult would have done something about that. Or if it was particularly uncomfortable, they do at least have the ability to deal with it themselves. Rather strange. Don't think I've ever seen that happen before. Jive Bunny, you're saying you'll tolerate a vervet monkey near you more than when you had a baboon near you in Kruger. Yes, please, for anybody, uh, do be wary of baboons, particularly those ones that are very habituated to people. They are not to be trifled with, certainly. Very, very powerful, massive teeth, and can be very aggressive, particularly when there is food involved. Okay, that was lovely to spend a little bit of time with some cheeky monkeys. Let's head over to Tembe Elephant Park and see what's happening in Maputo land. very floppy-eared impala. Do you have genuinely floppy ears, or are you just relaxing your ears? Oh, shame. Oh, a gorgeous bush shrike in the background. Floppy-eared impala, how sweet. Like Dumbo. Looks like it's got pigtails. I think that's obviously some damage to the cartilage in the ear. They don't normally hang like that. Normally standing up to attention. Just looking generally, looks a little bit forlorn, this one. Don't know if there is some sort of, I wouldn't say disease is a bit harsh, but it doesn't look, well, it looks in reasonable condition in terms of the fur. It doesn't look too emaciated, but just visibly doesn't look very happy with life. Where is your mother? Trying to work out, it almost looks as if she looks sad, but I don't know if that's just because of the floppy ears. It doesn't look, no, I'd say there's something is not 100%, certainly. Possibly a little bit skinny, considering all the vegetation that's around at the moment. Harlar more a domestic Nubian goat, yes, very much so. Trying to see if that's a little bit of damage there by the back leg, sort of on the ankle joint there. But oh, don't see any other impalas in the area. Zenbei, you're saying looks a little bit wobbly on her legs. Yeah, I agree. Something doesn't look quite right. I don't know what disease or virus or anything in impalas would cause that. I don't think I've ever seen an impala with two floppy ears like that. But I agree, it doesn't look 100%. You never know what you're going to see, just like you never know what you're going to find, which reminds me of another Juma memory that also sprung into my head when I was thinking about them a little bit earlier. I can't remember which cam off, might have been Chet actually. Chet and I were out and we were tracking Columba with the help of one of the other vehicles from one of the other lodges. Probably, I can't remember which, whether it was a Chitwa vehicle or Arathusa. And we've been driving around in circles in and around the Nyala Road North and sort of between Gary Dam and Buffelshoek Dam. And I remember we were on Hyena Road. I remember it vividly, this one. When I was coming south and we were looking and looking, sort of given up hope, really. Pulled over next to a termite mound to let this other vehicle go past. And we stopped and we had a chat about where Columba was and how she'd given us the slip. Again, Columba, if you're unaware, is a very well-known female leopard whose core territory was there on Juma. We used to see her regularly, and she was seen again this morning with her cub. And yeah, we were having a big fat debate about where on earth Columba could be and where we should look. Shame that the impala just fell in the water. Um, and one of the guests sort of casually sort of looked at us with this rather strange look on its face and said, is that the leopard you're looking for? And pointed, and I looked over to my left, and lying next to this termite mound, probably 3 meters away from the car, was Columba watching both of us, probably laughing at herself, thinking, "You stupid humans, I'm sitting here and you're discussing where I might be. How about you open your eyes? So myself and the other person, who thankfully will remain nameless because I honestly don't remember who it was, looked somewhat stupid there, having a debate about where this leopard could be when she was literally lying next to the car. Obviously, complete circumstance that I pulled over right next to her, but just goes to show you never know what you're going to find. But that was just a little friendly reminder that if Columba wanted to be seen, she would be seen. If she didn't, she would just disappear into the undergrowth and re-emerge a day or two later when she felt like it. Oh, just a brief appearance from our Ellies, and shame I'm a bit worried about that little impala. Did not look particularly happy and somewhat on its own, perhaps not able to keep up with the rest of the herd. But I think let's head back up to Oldonyo and see what's happening in Kenya. Oh, wow, a secretary bird. That's amazing. Oh, what a shame it's disappeared. That's the first secretary bird that I've seen on Live at the Waterhole. Even the giraffe have gathered to watch it. Very, very cool. One of my favourite birds, and currently probably my favourite bird, on the basis that I was in Kruger a couple of weekends ago, and somewhere between Letaba and Shingwetsi, we found a secretary bird wandering around close to a waterhole that then started, well, we thought maybe it was chasing something. It started running, and if you've never seen a secretary bird running, it is quite comical with those great big long legs, wings sort of outspread for balance as it's sort of tiptoe running across the felt, and then kept jumping up into the air and sort of looping down and trying to land on something. I couldn't see what it was after. Maybe a small ground dwelling bird chick or a rodent or something that was there. But this thing probably covered 40, 50 meters chasing after it with his, yeah, wings out and these long spindly legs sort of stamping around on the floor. Amazing to watch, but an incredible bird, secretary bird. So I'm sorry it was only a brief view, but that would have been, well, that is very special to see. First one I've seen at Oldonyo. Yeah, great sighting in Kruger. Just after, was it just after or just before? We also saw lions hunting some zebra. They were lying in wait on a sort of a floodplain with this herd of zebra slowly moving towards them, and we thought we might get a bit of a hunt and a chase. And then a great big grumpy dugger boy wandered into the fray, and sort of loitered around a little bit. And then the wind changed, and the buffalo got a whiff of the lions and properly chased the lions away, which gave away their position to the zebra. And eventually, nothing happened. Um, no lions were hurt during this story, neither were any zebras or buffalo. And then also on the way back down from Shingwetsi later that day, it was actually raining in the park, and a beautiful leopardess just popped out of the Mapani about 40 meters in front of us, stood by the side of the road, disappeared back into the Mapanis, went down, managed to find her next to the road, and she casually strolled across the road about 5 or 6 meters in front of the car and disappeared into the undergrowth on the other side. But we weren't really anticipating on seeing very much because it was raining at the time, thick Mapani felt. We were sort of debating a little bit earlier as to how many animals we've missed and driven past. And then a leopard just pops out in front of you on the road. Very, very special. Giraffe at the back has got a good spread going on. Very flexible. Somebody made who was it, Jive Bunny, who said a little bit earlier, giraffe Pilates class. Absolutely. Jive funny, yes, there was a secretary bird nest in Amacala. I know that we were watching that one for quite some time. Wonderful to be able to, I think, legs snap together like that, to be able to follow that sort of behaviour. When I was at Mabulla in December, we also saw a few secretary birds up there. But yeah, amazing creatures. Those beautiful little sort of head feathers, creating this sort of crest, almost like a Native American a headdress, and beautiful yellows and oranges on those little feathers sticking out from the back of the head. It was well known for eating snakes as well. Could have been perhaps what that one I saw was chasing. And that's very much reflected in the secretary bird's scientific name, Sagittarius serpentarius. Serpentarius referring obviously to that, and the Sagittarius referring to sort of hunting as per the constellation of Sagittarius. The heart of the Milky Way, high above our skies in our winter months. If you're looking towards the constellation of Sagittarius, you're looking right towards the centre of the Milky Way galaxy, the brightest part of the Milky Way. So in a couple of months, that will be rising nicely above the horizon just after sunset, or just after it started to get dark. Great photographic opportunities, Milky Way season in the next few months. Not to forget that there is in the Northern Hemisphere, of course, a constellation called Camelopardus, the giraffe, but not visible from down here in the Southern Hemisphere. I'm really hoping that secretary bird comes back again. Wildlife Lady Giraffe Pool Party. Yeah, nice to see one sort of standing in the water. Don't know if that's a sort of a dominance thing from that young male, showing off to the ladies that he's not scared to stand in the potentially crocodile-infested waterhole of Oldonyo. Or maybe he's just cooling off his tootsies. But interesting, the male is in there surrounded by three females. They're saying, hey, look what I can do. Hey, baby. It's generally the wrong side to sniff, buddy, if you're looking for information. Mindy Tillipal, there is no such thing as a dumb question, first and foremost, particularly when it comes to astronomy. If you're wondering how is it that we can see the Milky Way galaxy if we are in it, well, maybe I should specify when I say you're looking at the Milky Way, you're looking at the spiral arms. Remember our galaxy, always describe it's kind of like two fried eggs back to back. So you've got a blob in the middle. Right at the heart of it is Sagittarius A, the supermassive black hole, which is the epicenter of our galaxy, and the whole galaxy is spinning at something like 400 kilometers a second. And that means because of centrifugal force that the majority of stuff has been sort of shed off in this spiral pattern around the core in a very sort of flat plane. So that would be if the two eggs back to back, the two yolks make a circle, and then the egg whites make a thin disc. So think of it as a little bit like Saturn, really, a blob with a disc around it. So when you look up and you see the Milky Way in the night sky, you're looking at the spiral arms. We live on one of those spiral arms, but there are concentric arms. So when you see the Milky Way, you're looking sort of through the arms. The Milky Way is still above and below everything you see in the night sky, with the exception of the Magellanic Clouds here in the southern hemisphere. is within our galaxy, but the majority of stuff is concentrated on that line of where the spiral arms are. So like 90 something percent of all the mass of our galaxy is found between the core and those arms, and there's very little above and below. So the white milky light that you can see under dark skies is just because there are hundreds of billions of stars in there, but many of them are very, very small and relatively faint. Some of them are huge distances away. So their combined light we can't see as individual pinpricks of light. We see their combined light as this sort of diffuse milky haze in the night sky. We can see from any one spot on Earth under sort of average conditions and somebody with average eyesight, you can see about 3,000 stars in the night sky with the naked eye that you can physically look at and say that is a star, not just a fuzzy patch of light. But there are potentially 400 billion stars in the entire galaxy, so we can only see with the naked eye a tiny, tiny proportion of those stars. But take a pair of binoculars, take a small telescope, scan along the line of that Milky Way, and you will see countless, countless stars, which will see you until the end of your days trying to count them all individually. Jive Buddy is saying you're going to have to re-listen to this. Yeah, it is. It's quite overwhelming, and it's difficult for us as humans with finite lifespans and different appreciations of what big and far mean in our lives to try and get your head around some of the stuff up there is not easy. And you have to sort of reset and come at it with a completely open mind and a different process of trying to get to grips with the sheer enormity of everything up there. It's one of the most special feelings I get is when I photograph another galaxy, be it a Magellanic Cloud, the Andromeda Galaxy, or something even a little further away. I managed to take a picture of something called the Southern Pinwheel Galaxy a year or two ago, which is 12 million light years away, and it's an entire galaxy in its own right, and you can see those spiral arm structures. And to think that that is possible with amateur equipment from your back garden with a bit of patience and a bit of dedication, I think is such an incredibly humbling experience. Alarmo, not all galaxies are spiral galaxies like ours and like Andromeda or that southern pinwheel. You basically there's a classification system of galaxies. There are three main types. There are elliptical galaxies, which are great big blobs that have no distinct shape. They're just a sphere, kind of a ball of old stars. Normally, those are the really old galaxies. They've lost their shape over the years. The standard ones, the sort of middle-aged galaxies, are like ours, the spiral galaxies. And then you also get what are sort of called lenticular or irregular galaxies that have no obvious shape. They're often the small ones because they don't have enough mass for gravity to have shaped them into something specific, or they may have been disrupted by the gravity of another galaxy close by. It sort of tugged and pulled on it and destroyed the shape that it would have otherwise had. So those are sort of the three main types. You get irregular slash lenticular, that's another type, and then spiral and elliptical. Picasso, as far as I know, yes. Moving back to our giraffes, come a little closer to home. All herbivore hooves, or I should say ungulate hooves, do continuously grow. Remember, a hoof is just like a toenail, basically. That's what hooves are. They're modified toenails. An ungulate is a creature that walks on its tiptoes. So a giraffe is an even-toed ungulate. It has the two toes. All the other ones have regressed and fused. You've got things like the cannon bone in the forelimb, um, which is sort of the fused bone of what would have otherwise been this third and fourth toe. So they've evolved to have longer legs. They walk on their tiptoes, and their toenails have developed to become very hard wearing. Those are the shoes that they walk on. Just like with a horse, they have to have their hooves clipped every now and again. But out here in the wild, yes, these animals constantly walking over rough terrain. It's just a way their hooves are kept short and kept in good condition. So it's like walking on a massive nail file. Ah, Zen Bear. The ultimate question, do I think there's life out there looking back at us? I don't know, Zen Bear. I hope so. Um, I really hope so. A, because it would just be amazing to know that there is other stuff out there, and B, I hope there is, because otherwise we really are pretty lonely in this giant expanse of space. And to think that we might be the only life in hundreds of thousands of light years in any direction is it's sort of terrifying, and it really should put things into perspective about how fortunate that we are to exist and have such a diversity of life, from guinea fowls to butterflies to giraffes to ourselves. You know, we really must respect and protect and look after this life. But we will have to wait and see. Personally, and it's just my personal opinion, I think there has to be, and I honestly think that in my lifetime we will find some evidence of life, be it past or present, somewhere else. Technology is moving forward at such a swift rate that if you think back 20, 30 years ago, we didn't know of any exoplanets. We didn't know of any planets that existed outside of our own solar system. We've now got close to 6,000 known exoplanets and many more still to be confirmed. We're now able to analyze those atmospheres. We can see what gases are in those atmospheres. We can see what they're made out of. We're looking for biosignatures. We are finding liquid water in many places. There are two missions as we speak on their way to Jupiter, the Europa Clipper and the JUICE mission from the European Space Agency, that are going to the Galilean moons to investigate them more, with the potential to go back, because we think Europa and Ganymede as well have got liquid saltwater oceans underneath their icy crusts. And as far as we're concerned, life requires water. So who knows? I think it's highly unlikely we're alone, but we have no proof of anything to say any different yet. But for now, we should very much appreciate the life that we do know exists. The awkward grace of a giraffe having a drink. Yes, Minty Telepower, you're mentioning the two techniques. We've brought it up time and time again with how giraffes drink. They either go for the leg spread technique that we've just seen there, and you get the others then bend at the knees a lot more. I think we've sort of debated before as to whether that's passed on from parents. Is it just whatever feels better? I don't know, but they do seem to be the two preferred methods. I think I'd personally prefer the leg spreading as opposed to the bending at the knees. That looks like so much pressure on those little knee joints that they have, or ankle joints as they would be. Yes, Alex, you're mentioning that the giraffes keep looking around when they're drinking. Remember, because of that requirement to put your legs in difficult positions, It does mean that you can't react so well, you can't see so well, very vulnerable position. Remember, a lot of predators do hang out around water to take advantage of moments such as that. So giraffes, very nervous drinkers, often will take half an hour to do the last sort of 15 meters to water, making absolutely sure that there is no imminent danger in the area. And speaking of giraffe, I should probably mention another Juma memory, one that I hold very dear. It was during the time when we were doing a lot of bingos, the wildlife bingos. And there was one afternoon that Taylor and I were paired up, and we decided we'd sick and tired of not winning, so we were going to take matters into our own hands. And we recreated much of what was on our bingo board. I posed as a baboon in a tree throwing mud at Taylor. Taylor was a dung beetle, which nearly made me wet myself. I laughed so hard with her impressions of a dung beetle, running around and flying into the side of the vehicle and knocking herself senseless. And then my personal favourite was the goofy giraffe. With the help of Igor, who was our cam up for the day, we created our giraffe with a cap and a variety of other bush props on a long stick, and posed as a goofy giraffe behind some vegetation. It was a good day. I laughed very, very hard that day, and we won, even if just in an unofficial manner. But hopefully you guys remember that one. That was a definite highlight. Sorry, Mika, who is now in my ear. I was far too busy reminiscing over Taylor and I's stupidity, and I did not hear anything of what you said in my ear. Could you repeat, please? We are going back over to Tempe. Oh, mud bath time. I wonder if our little floppy-eared impala is still hanging around. Oh, that was a fun day with Taylor and I out there. It was elephant face planting himself. No shame. I think Taylor also dressed up as a zebra and danced. Uh, I posed as a rhino and depositing things in a midden. Stupidity, but highly entertaining. Oh, shame. That's our little impala. No, she does not look well. Sorry, little one. Don't know what could be wrong with her. There's some twitching of ears at least, but it doesn't bode well for this poor little impala. Whether it's got separated from the rest of the group, I can only assume so. But shame, it's quite harrowing when you see things like this. You want to help, but I don't know what could have caused the ears to be so floppy, or whether it's just a behavioural response of just sort of being sad and melancholy. I'm not sure. I'm just doing a quick check online if I can find anything about droopy ears in terms of specific diseases. I'm just seeing that it can be an illness indicator, that drooping ears can be a symptom of illness. Other signs like lethargy, lack of appetite, abnormal behavior. but shame. It doesn't bode well for that youngster. A severe infestation of ticks in the ears could cause the ears to droop as well. Shame, mind out, Impala, you're in the firing line a bit there. Shame, I think that young boy has chased the Impala away. I think I saw it move out of shot to the left. I'm still sort of having a look to see if I can find anything online. This is obviously from a US site, so referring to deer as opposed to impalas. But there is something called chronic wasting disease, which sounds pretty shocking, and something called episodic hemorrhagic disease, which can also cause floppy ears in deer. So I don't know if we have something similar over here. Shame, poor thing. Zenbear, you were asking what those ossicones are for. I guess we're referring to the giraffe here again. They are, for the females, they don't really serve any purpose whatsoever. For the males, they are for sexual selection, really, and for dominance and hierarchy. They're used as a weapon, but they serve no other purpose. They're not like little aerials that pick up messages from one another. There's no sensory um, purpose for them. They are purely there, really, for say for fighting with the males, necking with one another. And to the females, they've almost become residual. That's why they are smaller and less well formed and more tufted, much thinner. They're really not used for anything. Jive Bunny, Penelope Kenyon, you're sharing in my sadness for this poor little forlorn impala who did move on. I saw it move out of the way of the elephants just briefly, but it is very difficult to watch. You forget that all of these animals also going through their own trials and tribulations. Spas, you're asking how often do we see pythons feeding on weakened baby impalas? Well, I can't give you a figure, Spas, but certainly it would be an easy food source for a big python. Absolutely. We saw the one here a few weeks ago that I believe did eat an impala, or we saw it eat a young impala. So yes, that's the sort of thing that would be a perfectly acceptable meal for a python. Keep it going for quite some time. Um, and as harsh as it may seem, said all the time, but that's important for predators. It removes those weak genetics, even if that animal was to survive. And that's what the predators survive on. It's not easy to catch things. That's why there are far less predators than there are prey. So that is the bread and butter for the predators is weak, old, sick, young, injured animals. And if we take them all away, the predator population would suffer indefinitely. Spas, the last time we saw a giraffe at Tembe, I'm not sure, Spas, to be honest. You would have to ask the Zoomies and those people who watch religiously every day to answer that. I'm trying to think if I've seen giraffe at Tembe. I think feels like I might have done, but not for a while, certainly. And you're also asking about vervets. I'm sure there are vervet monkeys there, Spas, but agreed, I haven't seen any here for a while. But they are pretty widespread. Of course, in KZN you do also get the Sykes monkey, used to be known as the Simango monkey, in the coastal forests there. We even get some in this area if you go up into the Drakensberg. You might be lucky enough to see the Sykes monkeys. And Jive Bunny, you lost an entire red deer herd in a park in the UK from disease. I'm sorry to hear that. But those are the problems. If you do get a disease that is passed on between everybody in a close-knit community like that, it can have fairly devastating consequences. So speaking of seeing difficult things, reminds me of my next Juma memory, which was a harrowing morning, actually, which some of you will probably remember well, when Columba had her previous cubs from this litter. She had the boy and the girl. I don't believe they were ever named. One of them disappeared for a while, and we saw her with one cub. And then she left the cub in and around that big jackalberry on Gowrie Cutline, her favourite tree, as far as I'm concerned. And we went to go and look for her the next day, and there was no sign of the cub, and she was calling and calling and calling, and went back up into that tree and was sniffing around and calling. And we never saw that cub again. The previous evening was the last time it was ever seen, as far as I know. But that was really distressing, watching Columba walking around and trying to locate her cub, not knowing what had happened to it. Must be so difficult. So we wish her and Shapondo all the best. But the older the cub gets, the more likely they are to survive. But yeah, I remember that was very difficult to watch. And we also had, I forget who it was, but there was another male seen in that area. So we had her and the cub in that big jackalberry, and just opposite on the other side of the road, we had another male leopard. I don't think it was Mawati, it was another male, and he was in the area. So chances are that other male might have had something to do with it. It does happen, unfortunately. I've seen it many times before. Male leopards removing cubs that they believe to not be theirs to bring the female back into estrus. Harsh, but it is the nature of life. But as we say, we wish Tulumba and Shapondo all the best moving forward. And I'm sure we will still receive regular updates, and hopefully she will pop out onto the Chitwa Annette's area that we will be using from tomorrow as well. Or at least in the coming weeks. I can't specify for sure there'll be feed out of there tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure. But I'm sure we will get regular updates from the other guides. I know all of us regulars will be very, very keen to monitor her progress, and we'll be relying on updates from the other lodges, and I'm sure they will be plentiful. She is quite the star after all. It must be very, very difficult. You don't know how long she searches for until such time as she sort of completely gives up hope. But yeah, that was very distressing to watch, being truly helpless. Nothing we could do about it except share in her pain and her loss. It's an emotionally charged time, certainly. So that might be a foam nest frog nest there on that palm frond. And impalas with sticky up ears. David, you're saying that there are also some mango monkeys there at Tembe occasionally, or the Sykes monkeys, as I think they are now called, but I lose track of all these name changes. Certainly wouldn't surprise me. They are along that eastern coast, but certainly not something you would see in the low felt unless you go to the right areas, so up into the Little Drakensberg escarpment. There are areas where you can find them within a sort of an hour's drive from the western boundary of the Kruger, but none within the Kruger proper. Ah, pair of bully neck stalks. Okay, I think we are going to head to the northwest. Let's go up to Madikwe and to Tau. I'm quite interested to see how much water is in this dam. I know they've had a lot of rain up in Madikwe recently. Let's go have a look. Yes, plenty of rain. You can see all these yellow flowers, which the last time I did this a couple of weeks ago, they had disappeared. I think the recent rain that they've had in that area has obviously brought back a little bit of colour again. And I saw some footage from Madikwe from the far eastern side around Jackie's, where I was up, where I stayed when I did some work up in Madikwe for Wild Earth a couple of years ago. I saw some drone footage or some helicopter footage. The Mariko River having burst its banks. A lot of those lodges, unfortunately, had been flooded. Serious amounts of water, and certainly on the eastern side of the reserve. We wish them all the best, of course. Those little goslings there, I wonder, little Egyptian goose family. Welcome to Madikwe. I actually thought there would be more water here in town compared to what I've seen on the other side of the reserve, but maybe that water was very localized or came from further north and was carried down on the river as opposed to actually landing in this area precisely. It's still amazing to me how much vegetation is there in that open area. If you were watching 6 months ago, that was a dust bowl. There was nothing there at all. And yet now It is a field of vegetation, pioneery sort of weed type plants, but it is incredible to me what is hiding in that barren soil. Just think all of those seeds that must have been sitting in there dormant, waiting for a good drenching in the rain. Look at these little Egyptian goslings. Where are you three off to? They're making a break for it. One slightly older one in the middle with a dark cap. Oh, this is going on an adventure. I don't know if that was mum and dad that we saw on the far left, or if there are. I mean, there's plenty of Egyptian geese here. We've seen lots here over the months, but these three very independent. I worry that the sort of older sibling there is leading these youngsters astray, taking them on a little adventure. But as you say, Jive Bunny, yes, definitely crocs here. At least 4 or 5 decent-sized crocs in this water, so do be careful. Lorraine, good. You also noticed how this waterhole has changed over the months, but it doesn't half attract a lot of game, this waterhole at Tau. I've been there myself, always something interesting to watch around this waterhole, be it the crocs, elephants, big herds of zebra, wildebeest, ostriches, lots of things to see at this wonderful waterhole at Tau. I saw a zebra in the Maniletti the other day, which had had a close call with some lions by the looks of it. A couple of nasty slashes, open gashes around the rump area. Uh, poor zebra had been sort of literally slashed open on both sides and bits of skin hanging off. But again, everything looked clean, and I'm sure the zebra will survive, but definitely a close shave. It really just showed how sharp those claws can be and how much damage they can do. A raking lion's paw had created this crevasse in the thigh of this poor zebra. It must have been 10, 12 inches long, wide open, bare skin there, but say no blood, but just sort of the tattered edges and bits of skin hanging off the thigh. It was must have been incredibly sore, but still dangerous for a lion to attack a zebra from behind. It's the best way to do it, but yeah, a well-placed hoof from a zebra will easily shift, not easily, but it will shift a lion, certainly. Speaking of lions, there's another memory I've got from Juma being down on Gowrie, Maine, and the Black Dam males were patrolling or prowling towards me down the road, and I'd parked on one side. It was nighttime. I don't really know these lions. I hadn't spent much time with them. So I hadn't sort of built up the trust that they weren't going to eat me at any time, despite the fact that I should know better. It still does cross your mind. And despite the fact that we are quite comfortable with lions normally, there is something different about a lion at night versus a lion the daytime. And these lions are walking towards us. And I turned off all my lights and we were using the infrared camera. And I can't remember if it was cloudy or if it was just a very dark night, whether it was new moon or no moon in the sky or if it was cloudy. But we had all the lights off, the lion's walking down the road towards me. I've got no door on my driver's side of the car. I was in either Rusty or Wendy. And we're just watching the screen, so I can see the lions on the screen, and I can see they're getting closer and closer to the vehicle. And it suddenly occurred to me when they're about 10 meters away that I can see nothing. And I can just hear the sort of soft padding of the lions walking towards me. I can see zero through my own eyes, and I'm watching it virtually on the screen. And it's became very apparent to me that there was a lion about to walk past my very exposed driver's door, and all I could do was watch what was happening on the screen. If anything had happened, I'd have had no time to react. And I suddenly got a little bit nervous, but I was committed by that point. And yeah, I watched those lions walk past, and I can now see part of the car in the camera. And one of them stopped directly next to me. It can't have been more than 90 centimeters, a meter and a half away from the door. And it stopped and it looked towards me. And I'm watching this unfold on the camera in the knowledge that there is a lion looking at me through an open door from a meter and a half away. And I cannot see it. And I can just sort of hear it and smell it. And I suddenly thought, oof, this could be interesting. And then thankfully the lion carried on moving. But to know that I couldn't, or know that I was being watched and I couldn't see anything, and to watch it unfold virtually on a screen, I actually found very disturbing. It was the most uncomfortable that I've ever felt on any drive whilst out on Juma. I felt very exposed all of a sudden, but a good memory, certainly. Like when the hairs stand up on the back of your neck, you're just being watched by an apex predator that, if it wanted to, could have easily dragged me out of the car. But thankfully, we've built up enough trust over the years that we are tolerated. And for that, particularly that night, I am very, very grateful. Something scampering along the top there. I didn't see what that was. Definitely movement. I thought maybe it was a monitor lizard, but didn't look quite right for a monitor. Something on the damn wall that was moving. Looking at the thin stripe under the tail, these all look like boys, a bachelor group of stallions. Right, I think we're going to try another camera. Again, unfortunately, I didn't quite hear where we're going, so let's be surprised. Let's see where we end up. We're going back to the toy. Ah, some birding. Lovely. Some firefinches. Oh, wow, and a roller. Replaced by a beautiful lilac-breasted roller. You get some great birding opportunities here at Lentore. Absolutely spectacular plumage on the lilac-breasted rollers. We've had a lot of European rollers that are here at the moment, of course. They migrated down from southern Europe, but they will be leaving us shortly. Who have we got over there? More firefinches and possibly a sparrow. I assume northern grey-headed sparrow up here in Kenya. Oh, both sparrows, not a firefinch. I thought that was a female firefinch, but no, two grey-headed sparrows. So I assume north, we get northern and southern grey-headeds. Only southern down here. Penelope Kenyon, you say you love the Lentore bird life. So do I. It's a nice change of scene. Lucky enough to see lots of elephants and giraffe and other things coming down to drink, but we seem to have some wonderful, interesting sightings here at Lentore. Some beautiful birds. We've had ground squirrels. We often get the monkeys and the baboons. There's hammerkops that are frequently seen here. Some interesting terrapin behaviour as well, with one sort of sitting on top of another one that I remember seeing here a while back. And a superb starling. I think, oh no, this is the other one with the white eye. Oh, I can never remember this one, so my birding of Kenya is not wonderful. But we do see this one with the white eye quite regularly. Or is it? No, I think this is a superb starling. Yes, I think we get the Rupal starling as well, which are all blue and also have a white eye. Alex, you're referring to bird communication and how they can communicate with each other and if they can communicate with other species of bird as well. I'm not sure if a thrush can understand the language of a starling, or maybe there is some basic knowledge that can be passed through. Perhaps more of it's to do with body language. I'm not so sure, but if you take alarm calls, for example, certainly birds have learnt other birds' alarm calls, just like mammals have as well. And we see plenty of evidence that if one bird starts shouting at a snake, many other birds swiftly arrive as well. But that's an interesting sort of observational question, Alex. I'm not sure how much of a bird's language is understood by, or one species' language is understood by another species. That's something I'll have to have a look into. I would imagine they're fairly unique. Um, but as you said, I'm sure certain messages, the important messages, can still be passed on. Zenbei, you want what's the nerve center I'm broadcasting from? Like you're imagining a scaled down version of NASA. Perhaps if I had an unlimited budget, I would like to do so. No, unfortunately, we're not quite there. The hub of my astronomical adventures, though, is my new star deck. I have a flat roof with some astroturf down. I've got power up there. That's where I go to set up my fleet of telescopes and do my astrophotography from. Take a couple of lounges up there and maybe some refreshments. When it's clear, that's where I like to spend a lot of time. Although I have to say, with everything being so automated these days, once you've got everything up and running, because you're amassing such long periods of data, taking 5 minute images and potentially taking hundreds of them, um, I can now just sort of let it all go, and then I can come back inside and watch the rugby or the football or whatever I may wish to do, and just keep an eye on it all remotely. And yes, most of the post processing, which is a major part of astrophotography, because you have to really tease out that fine detail, happens in the bedroom with the aircon on, and a suite of a variety of astronomical software, which has a learning curve longer than I care to share with you. Very frustrating, but amazing what you can do with technology these days. But we're not quite at NASA proportions yet, but hopefully we'll get there eventually. And PB and Jam, you're referring to the pretty birds. I assume you're referring to the superb starling. Oh, that's a new one. That looks like a white-browed sparrow weaver. But again, I do apologise. I'm tending to take southern African birds and assuming that they are things that look similar. And Sebastian, you're asking if I have any bucket list things on my Kenyan bird list. Honestly, Sebastian, not particularly, because I'm not really quite sure what you would find up there. So it's not an area I know well. I did work in Tanzania for a year, but right down in the south in Katavi National Park, where the majority of the bird life was very similar to what we get down here. It seems sort of halfway up the country, everything changes. But I'm crossing fingers that if all goes according to plan, towards the end of April, I might be going up to Tanzania again and going up a little bit further north towards the Serengeti, in which case I will most definitely be trying to keep a fairly detailed list and getting some new birds for my global life list, which now has birds from, well, Southern Africa, from Bali, from England, from New Zealand, various places in Europe. I've no idea what my global life list is. I'd have to go and sort of count them all up. But yeah, to tick off a few new birds from northern Tanzania in the Serengeti area will be very exciting. Speaking of exciting, we're down to our last 10 minutes, so I wanted to share my last memory. of Juma, which I've saved the best for last. It's probably the most amazing thing I ever saw on Juma a few years ago. I think I had Paul with me, and we were down on Monkey Orange Road, and we were following Tortoise Pan through the undergrowth. Superb collection of superb starlings. Oh, that's interesting. One's got a red eye. I shall have to check in on my Kenyan starlings. Right, sorry, back to my last memory. So yes, I was driving with Paul, and we were following the mighty TP, the tank, Tortoise Pan, somewhere down there along Monkey Orange Road. And I remember we were following him, and he stopped and he was looking at something at the base of a tree and some long tufty grass there. We were, I suddenly thought his behaviour had changed. It almost looked like sort of stalk mode. The tail was twitching, but we couldn't see much. We couldn't really see if there was anything there. Every now and again, I thought maybe I spotted a little bit of movement, but we weren't quite sure. And he got a little bit closer, and he got a little bit closer, and suddenly, without warning, a porcupine shot out of that long grass, and TP jumped on it and managed to flip it over and subdued the porcupine. And Paul, with some great camera work, um, managed to catch this all on camera, all seeing it unfold in front of us live. I did very well to keep my language in check. I think I may have used a mild expletive because I was so excited. Yeah, and then we got to see Tortoise Pan kill and devour this porcupine, and watched him pluck out the quills, and he had various quills stuck in his chest and in his face and in his paws, which he did manage to get rid of. Obviously, there is a danger of infection, but that was pretty amazing to see a porcupine and to see the hunt during the day, but to actually catch it on film and be there at the right place at the right time. I think that's probably my best memory of all my time there at Juma, to see it happen in front of your eyes completely unexpectedly. That was an adrenaline charged moment, certainly. And of all things, to actually see a leopard take out a porcupine in broad daylight, you could understand if it was a duiker or a steenbok or a young impala. But to have a porcupine was very, very special. Trying to find a Kenyan starling with a red eye, unless it was just something to do with the way the light was reflecting off it. All the pictures that I can find of superb starlings do certainly have a pale eye. If anybody does know what that was, please do let me know. As I say, it was possibly just a trick of the light. But yes, some great memories of Juma, but time to make new memories in new places. Jive Bunny is saying he'd love to be close to Tortoise Pan. Yeah, he is a bit of a beast. He's not the tallest leopard you'll ever come across, but he's very, very well built, very, very staunch, as we would say out here, very stocky and very muscular. He walked past my car when I was there in December, and he really is a powerful looking cat. And Spas, you're saying you remember that sighting with TP and the porcupine? Yeah, one of my best memories from Juma, certainly. PB and Jam, I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Yeah, we're almost out of time now, unfortunately. And thank you for saying I have a wonderful baritone voice. My parents will be very proud. They are both in choirs. I can't sing to save my life before somebody asks. But yeah, I'm sure you will hear from me again next month. And so I hope to be exploring some of the new locations over the coming months as well. And Darkmane Lover thanking everybody, myself and the team and African for these wonderful pictures that we've been able to enjoy for the last 2 hours. They have gone very, very quickly as always, but I'm glad you've enjoyed the show, Darkmane Lover, and I'm glad you were able to join us. But this has been a lovely change of pace to end the show here at Ventore with this beautiful collection of bird life, some crazy colours, rollers, superb starlings, firefinches, feeling like an artist's palette for the last 10 minutes or so. But don't forget to definitely tune in later this afternoon for the final sunset safari from Juma. So I'm sure it'll be an emotionally charged evening. I'm sure there'll be plenty of stories being told, and hopefully we can say goodbye, at least for the time being, to some of our favourite characters. But what a wonderful um, home it has been for many, many years. But we are down to the last minute, so thank you everybody for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the last 2 hours. It's been wonderful to hear from you and say share some stories and have some lovely discussions. We've seen some amazing things as always. I think certainly highlights for today has been certainly this little stint of birding up here at Ventore. Uh, Even if it was a brief view, just to say that we saw a secretary bird at Oldogno was very, very special. And then, of course, that poor little floppy-eared impala down at Tembe. I think that stole everybody's hearts, and we wish her all the best. Hopefully, she can shift whatever ailment it is that is affecting her. But that was rather heart-wrenching to watch, certainly. Last 10 seconds. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and don't forget to tune in for Sunset Safari this evening. Thank you very much.